What's the motion that you guys are debating? This has to match all the religions.
Oh, one, two. I don't think this is. It's not on. Oh, is it working? Oh, okay. Okay. Okay.
Hello and welcome to round one of ASDC 2016. I'm your host Jaya. With me are Chip and Sai. We'll begin the debate now.
Okay.
Here we
Wow. I'm sorry, I have asthma, so I'll take some breaks.
go. You can switch.
Being part of a religious school and being part of a religious family, I think I'm in a position to talk about why religion should be banned, and I will give insights on why this is possible and why this must be proceeded with. Firstly, as a Protestant myself, I live in a family wherein God is the only thing that we live for. I live in a family wherein I have to go to church every Sunday, even though in the church I don't learn anything at all, when I could have been studying for things that I deem more important. For too long have I been in church and communicating and talking about God when at some point I don't feel him that much in my life. But the inherent harm to this is that when I told my parents this and became honest and straight with them, my parents immediately condemned me and said that God is the reason why you live, and they immediately didn't talk to me for one day. Ladies and gentlemen, the motion we propose is hardline. The stance we take is hardline. All religions must be banned. All beliefs of supernatural deities, even though some don't consider themselves religions, we will ban them immediately. So how do we go about this? We say that if we see you practicing this in public or in private, if we do catch you, we incriminate you, we bring you to jail, or we actually fine you to that extent. So there is a range, and basically we say that this is a crime. Secondly is that religious sites will be taken down, or if not taken down, will be prohibited areas. You cannot cross into them, and you cannot cross into them and pray and meditate for these purposes. And my second prong is that schools that practice religion will be forced to remove religion as their subject, or less that school will be taken down as soon as possible. Even though we take on a hardline stance, we will still justify, even though this might be controversial, to opt. But before I move on to my burden, yes?
Why are you victimizing individuals who choose religion and find some form of solace and find happiness from doing so?
I think I will answer that later on in my argument, because I'm still in my part of the burden. I will get onto that later on. So from government, our goal for today is to prove why is it justified to ban all these religions, because we know that we might be impeding on people's right to choices, but we will say that the trade-off and the risk of allowing religions is actually very big compared to their value. Secondly, is that when do we actually ban things? When there is a personal harm on a personal level that people do not actually know. And secondly, is when there's a third-party harm, when people who are not actually involved get sucked into this. So I will now move on to my first argument, on wherein religion has an intrinsic harm, and because of this, it's on a personal level, which is why we should ban this, right? So, firstly, is that we all might say that religion is consent, right? We do not want to impede on people's rights. We do not want to impede on people's right to choice. But we say that we already preempted this, and we say that the harm in this is very big. Because, first of all, we want to state that religion and choosing religion is actually, in most cases actually, an illegitimate consent. First reason to why this is so is that from childbirth you have been allowed to thrive in a family with religion. When I was a kid, when I was a kid in a Christian family, I learned and memorized Christian songs. I learned all Bible verses, and I've begun to learn about why God is of why God is governing in our lives. But second analysis is that they might say that there's not actually harm to this. But the intrinsic harm in this argument is that you grow up wherein you can't actually you are not given leeway to self-actualize. You're not given enough leeway to consent to this, right? Because when you were a kid, you were already risen up to do this. But we say that they don't. It's not like religious families allow you to choose religion when you're a teenager, when you have enough knowledge, and when you have enough knowledge to learn about what is good and what is bad for you and what you believe in. So there's an intrinsic harm to this. And secondly, is that if you follow norms that are against it, if you suddenly become interested in boys and start becoming homosexual, you will immediately be condemned in your family. The likelihood of you being condemned outweighs the likelihood of the parents accepting you into your family and treating you the same way. So second is condemnation, which provides a harm into this. No, thank you. Second premise is that you are being forced to do it. You're being forced to carry out this norm, and because of this, you don't get the value that's in it. As a Christian, I'm forced to go to Sunday school because the value in it is that you learn more about God. You learn more about how you can better do with your life. But what if you do not want to consent to this, right? What if you don't actually want to do this, assuming that you don't want to become a Christian? Well, then families will condemn you, and you're also being coerced to do this. The intrinsic harm behind this is that this is not natural. This is not your choice. So that concludes my first argument, and I will move on to my second argument, which is the basic but most important. Religions are in conflict with each other. We're not going to say that religions are diverse, that in all cases that they can live harmoniously for all time. Because first premise is that religions take a hardline stance. Because religions justify their credibility by polarizing themselves and by taking on a hard stance so that they can say that they stick to their core beliefs and to their dogma. But we say that by doing this, you create conflict because you create tension with people. You question each other's credibility so that you can gain credibility with your religion. Second premise is that religions are open to interpretation. Religions are open to be interpreted by a lot of people. They are because the people who constituted this religion are not alive right now, and that the people and the successors are open to interpretation. With these multiple interpretations, you get different tensions because you want to gain credibility for your side. People have in Syria now, people have too long been caught in the conflict between the Shiite and the Sunnis. For too long, have millions of Syrian refugees died and starved and impoverished and dragged out of their homes to be executed in the name of religion. Why? Because they say that religion, they do this because they're loyal. They do this because of this. So what have I proven to you today? I've proven to you, firstly, of why this consent is illegitimate, which is a blow against religion. And secondly, I've proven to you why religion presents a third-party harm to people in standing in the way, and why they are not actually justified in the first place. And because of these, we are proud to propose. Thank you.
I thank the Prime Minister for his speech, and I invite the Leader of Opposition.
if one or two people in society hate the fact that they have to go to church every Sunday, if several people hate the fact that they're stuck to this religion for a few years of their life, we believe that justification is not enough for you to punish every single member of society who clings onto religion as a form of life, as something that sustains their every single day and gives them that drive to live every single day as a human being. We believe religion is something that is amazing and proves to show that there are people out there who, no matter how bad their lives are, with the presence of religion, how they can still push and strive every single day. I'm going to talk to you about two things. Number one, I will analyze the importance of religion, especially towards I will point to you which parts of society does religion best cater to and how government harms that. And then number two, I will also talk about extremist groups directly clashing with their whole idea of interpretation of religion. But first, what's our stance from side opposition? Our stance is that we are totally fine with religion because we understand the benefits of religion and how it helps individuals out there. What we're not okay with is false interpretations, and this is exactly where people like ISIS come in, all these extreme radical groups who have their own ideologies and try to link it to religion, and that's where false interpretation happens. We believe that is the problem and not religion as a whole. So let's take a look at several rebuttals before I get into my substantives. Firstly, he talked about how people don't like religion and on the whole idea of indoctrination. Two responses. Number one, unfortunately, yes, we regret that there is indoctrination that occurs with the presence of religion. We have to realize that there is a small amount of people out there who actually hate their religion in any way, right? But we also understand, which is exactly why we give adults, or once you reach that legal age, we give you that option to opt out of that religion, to join something else, which is why we never force religion onto every single individual in society, right? Because we realize that religion is something you can choose, and it's something that truly brings solace to you and gives you that form of peace and gives you that drive to live, right? It's ridiculous for you to punish every single individual in society just because of these few people who hate going to church and things like that. But second response, please sit down. Even without religion, we believe that indoctrination or discrimination towards other people is still going to occur whatsoever. Other factors like your race, other factors like your nationality or your where you are on the social ladder. We believe these are external factors that can also contribute to a form of indoctrination and discrimination. All the harms that they want to remove will still happen, and it's even worse because the difference with religion and your race is that you can never choose your race, which means if people are going to hate on you even more, it's even worse because there's nothing you can do and you will forever be stuck in that way. At least religion is something you chose, so it's something that you feel empowered with when you stick with it, and it's something that gives you that form of pride. But let's take a look at his other argument on how you discriminate LGBTs. Since this is a policy motion where you will punish people who practice their religion, we believe those ideologies will still be within those people in society, which means people will still hate these LGBTs. People who are indoctrinated will still hate them nevertheless, right? But we already see that we are already slowly progressing and beginning to accept these individuals. Therefore, we simply just brush this off as it's not that big of an issue. Let's get into my substantives. Number one, importance of religion. But before I proceed, any POIs?
Are you okay with religion being an avenue for misinterpretations, just ISIS? How are you going to stop that to your side?
We believe that the reason why misinterpretation even happens is because of bad people in society, because of individuals with extreme mindsets. We believe these are mindsets which will still be there even without religion. They'll just find some other excuse to rally people together. They'll find more excuses to attack people whatsoever. If you think you removing religion totally destroys ISIS off the face of the earth, we tell you that it's ridiculous, because these extreme radical individuals are people who are crazy in nature, which means they'll forever want to kill. Removing religion does not remove their intention of hurting people, and we believe you don't protect them whatsoever. If you want to protect individuals, I'll prove to you why with religion you can best do that. First level, who are the people who truly need or use religion. Yes, there are those middle and upper class individuals, but the most important people are those people who are under the poverty line, those social minorities, those people who have suffered so much. We believe these are individuals who have very few things to cling on already, right? Where they're already suffering so much in their daily life for something they never even chose. These desperate individuals, the only thing that keeps these people alive is religion. And we believe that this thing that gives them a form of solace, that gives them a sense of belonging, that there are people out there just like you and you are all together as one. We believe that is when you truly help these people. What side government does is you unfairly punish these people because there's nothing they can do now and they're just forced to suffer. But what's the best thing that we get? Is this form of happiness towards these individuals. Why do we go to school? Why do we go to hospitals? And why do we go to work? It's because these are things that bring us a form of happiness. Being educated, getting money, getting good health, these are things that gives you that form of happiness. We believe the reason why they opt into religion in the first place is because they feel that it's something that truly represents them. It's something that will truly let them be happy. When this identity of these individuals are respected and acknowledged, only then can you truly achieve that form of happiness which side government simply brushes off, right? But why is this an unfair punishment on the second level? We believe that if you are the side that wants to punish extremists or people who misinterpret religion, we don't see why you should do this when it comes at the expense of all these individuals I just talked about. If you're going to punish these few crazy people, we believe it shouldn't come at the expense of letting everyone else in society suffer. That in itself is so morally abhorrent. But let's compare the extremists and all these religious individuals, right? Because these extremists are on a much smaller scale compared to these religious individuals, right? And these extremists are already being combated against. We already see people going against them. We already see huge government organizations going against these terrorist groups. Whereas religious people, you remove the one thing that they need, the one thing that these individuals have, and it's extremely unfair for you to do so. These people never caused ISIS to go kill 1 million people. These people never chose violence. These people just want to be happy.
I thank the Leader of Opposition for this speech. I now invite the Deputy Prime Minister.
Got it. Madam Speaker, we acknowledge that some people cling to religion. We acknowledge it's their only hope that there's a God there taking care of them in the future. But what we also acknowledge is other bad things happening. For instance, other people not being able to get their LGBT marriage, for instance, or other people not being inclusive in that religion because the religion condemns if they're gays, right? We tell you, these are other harms that outweigh this harm. What am I going to be going to prove to you today, right? First, I'll rebut their case, and then I'll move on to my extension on how there's a scapegoat justification for your actions, and how there's also a minority in religions, and this completely clashes with your first argument. Before that, some responses, right? First, a clarification. It is not our burden to prove why we'll solve ISIS and all these problems. Let me give you an example. There's lots of ways to discriminate. Race, nationality, etc., etc. There's 10 piranhas biting on your foot. Why not remove one? Your only justification is, we shouldn't remove that one because there's still 9 left biting anyways. So why don't you want to remove one aspect of discrimination and then slowly solve the other ones? What we're doing in this debate is removing one aspect. Why will you not allow us to do that? Your only justification is that, oh, if you remove it, there's other things that still flourish, right? We tell you, then remove religion and also remove the other things in the future. Then they talked about indoctrination. They said they regret it. Yes, me too. In fact, a lot more than you. What did they say? You can opt out of indoctrination. We told you clearly from my PM's speech that these things happen from childbirth, which means since you were born, you're already in this environment. People tell you that, oh, you should be a Christian, and you grew up in these kinds of environment. You were already you're already programmed by default to think that this is true. You are brainwashed, and therefore the consent is illegitimate. But moreover, what's the campaigning strategies of religion? They say, if you don't join us, you're gonna go to hell. That's also a threat. You're being threatened to say, I might go to hell when I die, an arbitrary standard, right? And you go into religion. We tell you that's why consent is legitimate, because you tell people if you don't join me, you're gonna die. That's why if people believe it when they join you, the consent is still illegitimate, right? But moreover, they tell us that ideologies against LGBT will still exist. We tell you you shafted your own case. There's still organic change, right? It's still which means it's slowly being more accepted. But even if it doesn't, right? When we kill this generation, this religion, when we ban it, fine, we can see this generation might have it. But sooner or later, the next generation won't have it. They'll only get a glimpse, and sooner, it'll be totally gone. We tell you that's how you social engineer society into thinking there is no religion. And then they told us, right, about the importance of religion, which is practically the only argument they gave to us. Thus, social minorities and people under the poverty line have nothing to cling on but religion. Let me tell you, they have to donate lots of their money to the church because the church tells them to, and they're still poor. So how are you going to help them now? If the religion coerces them to do all these things, they still get taxed even if they're poor. So what do you propose on our side? We say it's a false hope to cling on religion. You know what? Go cling on the workplace. They said there's happiness in work. So why can't you cling on work? You also shafted your case there, right? But before I move on to the extension, yes.
Yes, you're removing a small part of discrimination, but this comes at the expense of allowing so many individuals to suffer because you remove their main platform of happiness. Why are you okay with letting people suffer?
But you also conceded that workplace is also a platform of happiness. That other things like social movements are a platform of happiness, which means they can put their hope in somewhere else. What's the value in religion, right? That lots of people are discriminated and their rights are gone. But moreover, you were programmed by default since birth to believe this kind of rhetoric, right? Which is wrong to begin with. So what's my extension for you today? First, scapegoat justification, which I'll rebuild our case and extend more on my Prime Minister's case on how this is an avenue for radicalism. Let's analyze. Why do people turn radical to begin with? It's because the state oppresses them. That's why they want to reinterpret religion, these old texts. They want to bring them about and reinterpret them in these kinds of things. Moreover, they also reinterpret, since the Bible says women submit to your husband, they also reinterpret it literally. That's why when they are oppressed, they have an avenue to reinterpret these things the very way they want, right? They have these things. And then how do they get rhetoric to gather people? They say, oh, if you don't join me, this is the true meaning of religion. Which means if you don't join me, you'll probably go to hell. And people buy it because they seem so legitimate, right? That, oh, this is the basic text of the Bible. Which will you follow more? So I think a lot of people follow these rhetorics of these terrorists, right? Because it's an avenue of radicalism, right? That people follow, and because religion coerces them to follow, they'll still go to it. So what does this do, right? This gives them an avenue that says, it's okay if I kill people. In fact, it's okay because the religion tells me the very deity that you want, that people cling hope to, will now kill people. Which means that's why we have moderate Muslims and radical change them into straight people. We tell you, if you're a gay and you're brainwashed to think that religion is correct, that there's a God there who wants you to be straight, you're going to have so much emotional burden. Oh, I'm part of a church, but I'm still condemned, right? Because I don't feel at home. I don't feel well. Yes, people can cling. Let's assume that your case still runs, even if I destroyed it. Yes, people can cling. But some people are ousted of religion. They feel bad of themselves. They feel that there's no hope. Because religion is the ultimate deity, right? Which you guys wanted. But now, how are other people going to react? Some of these people who abort, people who are gays, will feel so bad of themselves that they'll probably suicide, will probably feel so bad. So what does religion do? Let's analyze the meta-debate of this debate, right? The only value coming from them was hope. How does this outweigh? What's the propensity for hope, right? Other than it being brainwashed and not legitimate consent to begin with, let's assume that people have hope. What are we fighting for our side? Because it's an equal value to say that some people cling on it and some people are emotionally burdened on it. But why is it more likely that emotional burden is a bigger value? Because you can shift your happiness from religion to another things. In fact, you can shift it to more practical and logical things in the future. Therefore, this outweighs that value. But moreover, what are the other values they have to engage in this debate? They have to engage discrimination. They're only saying was, oh, there's alternatives anyways. We agree, but why not change it now and ban religion? Because it was the source of these things to begin with, right? So what does this mean? at the end of this debate, it seems to be a clear win. Why? Because the only value they gave to us was hope. Without hope, people will die all of a sudden. No, the harm there is that people will feel sad. Even there's a benefit. Now you don't need to donate taxes to your religion, right? You don't need to donate money. That's the benefit on our side. So if you want to win this debate, you have to prove your burden right. Tell us why religion is so important and why people need it in the future. Thanks.
Thank you. I call upon the proposition.
The few things that side government wanted to talk about is that people are indoctrinated to choose religion, or for the first 18 years of their lives is being forced upon them. We think that that paradigm exists under their side as well. The first 18 years of your life is when you are actually trying to figure out what you'll be in the future. That is why we make people go through education, but later let them choose what they want to do with it. That is why we make them go through certain things until they are 18 years old and set the age of maturity, where they can make that when they can have the rational calculus to make a proper decision. We think that argument that they want to talk about is something that's marginal because it's in principally aligned with everything else that government does, such as education. Bro, it's not even 1 minute yet. Just such as education, such as anything else that we do, like sports or whatever in schools. But number two, we give these individuals a choice. So after they're 18, they can choose to other religions, or they can just choose not to believe in God. But this debate is explicitly important to those individuals who do choose God, who do feel that happiness by listening to God, by realizing that there's another deity up there listening and caring for them. That is the hope that we want this in society today. We think that hope is really important to drive individuals forward. Your side continue having discrimination. African Americans will still continuously be discriminated under your side. At least those individuals who believe in God can find hope, can find that there will be someone to care for them in the future, that they are not alone in this world. We think that benefit can never be achieved under side government. We think that those individuals need their identity to be respected. Those individuals need to find their happiness, and you cannot take away their platform when you can't even justify a third-party harm under these circumstances. We think that it's morally abhorrent for side government to run their case. Sit down, I'll take one later. They told us that this brings an avenue for reinterpretation. Number one, that can happen anyway. Under your side, you can reinterpret what the state wants. You can reinterpret what your race is actually about. You can reinterpret certain stereotypes or stigmas. Your side doesn't change that stereotype. Your side doesn't change the stigma, or your side doesn't change the moral conscience that individuals already have in status quo. So people will still reinterpret. But why is it even worse when you take away religion? Because religion already exists now. So this is where ISIS comes in, right? So ISIS can use this as a rallying call by saying, your government is not even protecting your identity. I am. You should join me because I am the fighter of Islam. I am the fighter of Muslims all around the world. We think that is when the problem gets even worse under side government. So we think that is when reinterpretation will be even worse because you can't control what this reinterpretation is. At least under our side, governments still have some form of power to control what churches teach, to control Muslim schools in societies. We think that is important. That is the only way that you can mitigate the harm of reinterpretation, or at least close the platforms of avenues for reinterpretation to actually happen. Yes, we concede that there are many platforms for you to find happiness, but you also need to concede that individuals find happiness from going for religion. That's why we let people choose whether or not they believe in God, or whether or not they believe in Jesus or Buddha or Buddhist or any other Hindu gods, right? We think that choice is when you can get happiness. When your choice matters, when your choice is valuable, when your choice is something that's not deemed stupid by society. We think that those kinds of instances only happen under side government. You shut down happiness for all those individuals that believe in God. So let's just take a look at my arguments that I'll be talking about today, right? How you exaggerate the harm of extremist groups in society. But before that, I'll take the POI.
Wait, you keep saying that it's a choice after 18 to opt into religion. How about the people in ISIS that will be killed if they don't opt into Sharia law?
Okay, Your problem is with ISIS. We concede that's everyone's freaking problem now, right? But you taking away religion doesn't solve it, because ISIS will continue using it as a rallying call. ISIS now have a purpose to get more people to join their cause. ISIS have more purpose to have some form of martyrdom, or that avenue to use as martyrdom. We think that you don't solve the problem of ISIS, you exacerbate the harm. You make it even more harder to solve. Because we think that right now, when we have the more moderate religious people, the backs of the US government, trying to destroy ISIS, that is when you can stand in solidarity. That is when you can have togetherness to try to solve the problem. But when you take away the identity of individuals, such in an abhorrent way, you think that you make society even worse. That's when you make people radical, because you're disenfranchising individuals by discriminating their choice. That is when the state has no control, when they isolate themselves from society or isolate themselves from the public. So extremist groups, people are already angry, Madam Chair. So ISIS already are angry with the government, trying to control what religion does. We think that now they can use this as rallying call and make it an even worse of a problem. Because religion is also important for ISIS, but they misinterpret it. And they spread their knowledge or their interpretation in a much larger way. We think that if you want to solve the problem of ISIS, or at least mitigate the harm, you should use religion under our side. So we can convince the moderates to join the fight against ISIS, or convince the moderates to give support to individuals who are fighting ISIS. We think that that is when extremist groups are better solved under status quo. And these individuals are already easily tempted, so you taking away their choice, especially in America where the people are already Islamophobic, and taking away their religion, that is when you have more people going to ISIS, because they're very tempted to do so, because knowing that they can find acceptance and they don't even need to work hard for it. Just join an extremist groups that's already much more powerful, because religion is taken away under your side. So what did Ayman talk to you about that was really important? It was not actually rebutted by, or was just dismissed by the speaker before me. Ayman told you that indoctrination is something that will happen regardless. And the factors of discrimination still exist under your side. You don't change that moral conscience. You need to change that. That is when your benefits can make sense. You banning religion, here's the comparative. Under your side, you ban religion. People have no form of hope, because religion is just a pathway to life. Religion is just that guidance that you need, or that direction for you to take in life. We think that those kinds of things are gone. And the difference between race and religion is that I can choose the path I wish to take. I can choose which religion I want to use. But I cannot choose my race. I cannot choose if I'm an African American or if I'm a Chinese individual. We think that religion is something that is really important. As much as it's harmful that under our worst case scenario that 18 years of children's lives will have to be indoctrinated, we think there is a trade-off we're willing to take. If it means the happiness for the rest of their life, we think that is much more beneficial under our side. Because we think that the age of maturity is there so that we can validate and control people's choices. We are very proud to oppose.
Thank you very much. I now call upon the government.
Wait, timer.
Wait, what's a password?
We think it's unfair for them to keep characterizing extremists as people who simply have bad intentions and don't use Sharia law and don't use religion as a scapegoat to do unjustified things. And we definitely think it's unfair for all of their responses to our case to be only this. Okay, it will still happen anyway. But then I think that the biggest issue is this, right? if religion is being used as a scapegoat, if religion is being used as an excuse to do these bad things, then at least we're giving the bad guys one less excuse to be doing bad things, right? At least on our side, the rhetoric against these bad people are stronger versus their side where religion exists and where bad people still can use religion as an excuse. We think, therefore, all their responses are on them. But let's respond. Look, okay, we think that the extremist groups are actually worse off on your side because, one, the rhetoric against them is less strong, right? We tell you that when we ban religion, there's no more rhetoric for these extremists to be alive, right? We tell you that the moment we ban religion, now the UN has the proper rhetoric to military intervene to start fighting against these extremists head on. We tell you that there's no more rhetoric protecting these extremists. No, thank you. But then let's go on to rebut their case. The only values they're standing for, and this is something that my DPM that DPM's already pointed out, is this whole idea of identity, hope, and happiness. When we already told you that minorities are also being oppressed on their side, that people's rights are being subdued on their side, and that's something that they have to take. Why is the happiness that people attain? Why does that happiness get to curtail the right of people that are being subdued, of people that are being oppressed? When you think of LGBT people, for example, we think that these LGBT people are being oppressed simply because of religion. We think that therefore their side cannot simply give you a bucket list of happy things. They have to tell you why it has to curtail the right of these LGBT people to be happy. We think their case is so flawed. But then let's respond to it anyway. What's the first thing coming from LO? The first thing that came from LO is this whole idea about how indoctrination will still happen. Well, we tell you that indoctrination might still happen, but what's the difference between religion and law, say for example, that also kind of indoctrinates you anyway? The difference between religion and law is that law is absolute, whereas law is absolute, legitimate, and equal for everybody, whereas religion is based on dogma that was written 1,000 years ago. We're not even sure if it's legitimate or justified. We think that it's so unfair for religion to base its actions on this dogma and then subject people who believe in it to this thing. And we think that the whole idea of indoctrination exists because these religions always reinforce the rhetoric that if you don't opt into our religion, you'll go to hell. We think that therefore, that because of those reasons, the indoctrination is happening, and the consent that people give to believe in this religion is illegitimate in the first place. We tell you that's why indoctrination exists. They fail to respond. But what's the second thing that came from LO? The second thing that came from LO is this whole idea. About how people will still hate about how banning religions isn't the way to reinforce progressive values. Well, we tell you that it's because of the fact that religions are based on dogma that these progressive values can't go on, right? The reason why people are having a hard time accepting progressive values like LGBT is because they're based on dogma that was written 1,000 years ago. When we ban religion, what will happen? We say that when we ban religion, we will reject all of this dogma. We will reject all of the rhetoric all of the unjust rhetoric that religion poses to society. Right? We tell you therefore that progressive values will be better off. No, thank you. But then let's engage their case further of this whole hope, happiness, and like identity thing. Because firstly, we tell you that the only minority that they're trying to protect is the poor people, right? We tell you it's even worse off in their side because now the poor people have the rhetoric, oh, God will provide. We tell you that kind of rhetoric is the exact kind of rhetoric that we don't want on our side because then these poor people will never go beyond the poverty line. We tell you that religion reinforces the wrong rhetoric. We tell you that religion is reinforcing the wrong values. That's why these people are in the poverty line to begin with. We tell you then that the minority that they're trying to protect is being affected more on their side because religion tries to enforce to enforce this rhetoric on them. And not only that, they're also reinforcing practices, right? Where those who are impoverished could be working, they are suddenly praying, where they could be trying to get out of the poverty line, they're hoping that God will get them out of that poverty line. We tell you even further that the moment God fails, that the moment these deities fail to meet the needs of these people, it's even worse off on their side because now they hate because now they hate the religion. Religion isn't something that gives them hope and it gives them a false sense of hope. Religion is something that condemns them. Religion is something that fails them. That's something they have to respond to. So we think that our whole case of how people are being oppressed already, of how the consent to opt into religion was illegitimate to begin with, and how there's so many other harms that religions brings about, we think that we definitely have to take this debate. Thank you.
I now call upon the opposition.
If the only form of solace I feel is through God, and the only form of happiness I feel is through God, and their side takes away that form for me to exercise that happiness, we tell you that there are more substantial harms than benefits that can come from their side. Two issues I'll be talking about in today's debate. Number one, which side better caters to society, and which side better mitigates the harms of extreme radical groups. Let's take a look at my first issue, on which side better caters to society. The first thing they talked about was indoctrination, and how some people are brought up to love religion and they cannot go out of that cycle of indoctrination. We tell you it might happen, indoctrination happens nonetheless. But here's the thing, we cannot sacrifice these minorities who are indoctrinated for the majority of people who opted into that religion, who loves their God, who prays every time, and to find that only form of happiness. We cannot make that trade-off because of these minorities who can easily opt out of that religion when they grow up later in their life. If they hate that religion so much, we tell you that they will opt out of that religion. They won't stay in that cycle of hatred towards their religion. If they hate it so much, and even if they're indoctrinated, they will leave it. We are talking about the people who opted into the religion, who wants to feel happy by getting closer to God, who feels that form of solace when they get closer to God. We are not willing to make that trade-off because for most people, it's their only form of happiness. It's the only place where they can feel happiness and the only place where they can feel that they belong. Because here's the thing about religion. You choose to be in that religion. Therefore, you feel closer to God. We don't think that you feel that form of community when you're raised or per se, because ultimately you chose that religion. So therefore, that emotional bond to religion is higher than your race, which you were born with, and you can never choose. Let's take a look at the second thing they talk about. They talk about discrimination towards, for example, LGBTs and committing suicide. Here's the thing, guys. Society is already progressing. Stop talking about things that happened 50 years ago. LGBTs are not getting stoned anymore. They are getting their rights. They can have gay marriages. But let's take a look at our worst case scenario in conservative societies. You don't change that because their ideologies are still there. They will still indoctrinate their children even without the existence of religion as a whole. They'll still indoctrinate their children to hate LGBTs in these conservative societies. You don't change that. On the contrary, you make it even worse. This is when parents will blame LGBTs for taking away their religion. Now they put the blame onto the LGBTs, and the discrimination will be even more because of them, my religion is gone. I can no longer feel closer to God because of these LGBTs. So the discrimination will become even worse. And here's the thing, the discrimination will be underground. So the government can never check this discrimination. For example, my mother may discriminate me, ground me for my whole life because I'm an LGBT under their scenario. Because of me, my mother's religion is now gone. Now she also talked about, after this issue, they also talk about how there is other forms of happiness besides religion. Here's the thing, guys, you cannot push it aside just because there are other forms of happiness. For most people, it's their only form of happiness, which directly rebuts with the government whip's rebuttal about how these people under the poverty line will only look to religion as a thing. Number one, we don't think they'll happen. They can go to church every Sunday, but they can still find their work. And even if they pray every day and don't go to work, we tell you it is justified. If they don't feel like going to work because they feel they cannot cope with work, they cannot suffice with work, we tell you they can suffice with their religion. It makes them happy, makes them feel safe. We tell you that is legitimate for these people under the poverty line. If they don't want to work and they really want to devote their life to religion, where they can sustain their life, where they feel they can sustain their life, we tell you, go ahead. But we don't think that's necessary. They can still go to church, they can still work at the same time. Before I move on, sure.
Rule goes first why consent is legitimate on your side in order for arguments to run. Secondly, since religion is a social construct, why can't we construct another form of happiness? Since they grew up to believe it, then make them a new one.
Here's the thing. Religion has been around for so long. This is when you create that form of staunch believers and people who devote their life to religion as a whole. Because you take away that form of happiness, it is a long-term harm where people can no longer access that form of happiness. And it's harder for you to find another social construct because you can't look to things like race, where you don't choose it, you're born with that race. You were born through the birth lottery. You didn't choose to be that particular race as a whole. Now let's take a look at our second issue on which side mitigates the harms of extremists. The government talked about how a hardline rhetoric is needed to counter these radicals as a whole. We don't think that's true. When you have a hardline stance against these radicals, this is when you aggravate that radicals. This is when they become even more radical than they are. They feel you're pushing them into a corner which they cannot fight off. This is when they will retaliate even more. And here's the thing, once you just ban religion, doesn't mean ISIS will be gone forever. This is when ISIS will become even will prevail even more, become more aggravated and aggravated and radicalized because you're the one who pushed them in the corner and ban religion as a whole. And here's the thing, when so many people in the Middle East devote their life to religion as a whole, when their own government is devoted to religion and you just ban that, this is when people no longer feel that form of connection to God, and the only party that allows that form of connection to God is ISIS itself, because ISIS doesn't care about your policies of banning religion. They will still go on and exercise that form of they'll still portray their religion as a whole. They won't care about that policies you face. So here's the thing that will happen. People will start looking to ISIS and joining ISIS because that's the only hope, that's the only way for them to feel closer to God. Because your side takes away every other avenue for me to feel closer to God, for me to exercise my religion. Only ISIS does that for me because ISIS doesn't care about your policies. This is when more and more people will rally to ISIS, and this becomes a rallying call for ISIS. When you aggravate and radicalize them even more, you make them a stronger power, which we don't need. They'll kill more people on the ground who don't want to believe in the religion. More and more people will be harmed under your side. And here's the thing, guys, just because this directly clashes with their that thing of discrimination. Just because you take one form of discrimination, even if it does exist in Texas School, which we believe people are progressing, but at the same time, you take away millions of people from their source of happiness. You don't make a world a better place. You create more suffering where people no longer feel closer to God when they devoted their life to God all their while. With that, I've never been prouder to oppose. Oh.
Thank you very much. As is customary, you first have the honor.
throughout this entire debate, side government have failed to truly understand how one achieves happiness, how one chooses to opt into a religion, because that is something that truly represents themselves. That identity of this individual is extremely important, and there are just some things you can't construct in any other way. Here's how I'm going to structure my reply speech. First, I'm going to take a look at all the arguments that came from both sides. Then I'll truly analyze the problem with side government. And lastly, the best case, worst case scenario of both sides in today's debate. So let's take a look at what both sides brought up, right? Because we told you how about the people who need this religion, people who require that form of happiness and things like that, which we have sufficiently proved throughout all three speeches. We also told you how it's extremely unfair for you to collectively punish every single person in the world for these few extremist groups which are already being combated in status quo anyway, right? We already see huge bodies telling people to not align with ISIS, to tell people that, look, ISIS is bad, and people know that as well, right? We also told you how you aggravate extremist groups and things get even worse. Because we told you how extremist groups, you can see, they get pissed off at the smallest things. When people say, oh, ISIS is bad, that is when they get angry. We tell you, when you remove religion, which is something so huge to these people, that's why they'll get even angrier, and we tell you that is even more harmful, because that's when they're going to kill even more people. But let's take a look at what they said, right? Because they told us that their main problem was indoctrination. And we already tackled this many, many times, right? They also came up on the whole idea of LGBTs, and Ben and Sanji already told you how LGBTs are already slowly being accepted in society, and these ideologies will still be within those people, and it gets even worse when the blame turns to these LGBTs and the discrimination gets much, much worse. We don't see how you protect them in any way. Then they told us how religion is an avenue for misinterpretation and how they remove one form of discrimination. But they fail to understand, but by removing one form of discrimination, it doesn't make the world a safer place whatsoever, because they'll just find other avenues to discriminate people. They'll just find other forms of they'll find other ways to confuse people and get people to rally for ISIS, right? But let's take a look at the biggest problem with side government, right? Because they need to learn that in order to solve a problem, you have to tackle the root of that problem. Here are the two things that they said. Guys, you did not do this. There are two problems for indoctrination and extremist groups. Let's take a look at indoctrination. Because the biggest problem with indoctrination are the parents, right? These are individuals who choose to push things to their kids. In most cases, the kids never hate it because they just take it in. And once they're at that mature age, we give them that opportunity to opt out. But even if it's so bad, you change the parents, not the religion. Because religion never tells you to, force this down your son's throat, because surely this is something that he wants, right? We tell you that religion never asks you to indoctrinate. And if you want to truly tackle the problem of indoctrination, you tackle the parents, not religion, and every single person involved within that religion, even those who don't indoctrinate. Then the other problem was extremist groups, right? Individuals who misinterpret. Obviously, these people who misinterpret are individuals who are radical, right? Which means this characteristic or personality of these individuals will still be that, which means they would still have that hunger to kill, which means they would still have that form of hatred within them, right? This doesn't change whatsoever. For the next thing you know, they're going to say, you have to go against the government because they're totally not helping you whatsoever. That is what I'm doing. And that's where ISIS just rises again, right? We tell you that maybe under our side, people can be happy when they have their identity being recognized. Yes, people may be indoctrinated under our side, but we tell you that people can opt out, and it's a short-term harm on the long-term benefit where people can feel happy and empowered. Under their side, even if somehow LGBTs can be free, ISIS will somehow be safe and sit down. We don't see how that's going to happen when the world is never a safe place under side government.
Madam Speaker, I want to ask a basic question in debate. How do you end discrimination? Since that seemed to be one of the biggest contentions in this debate. Is it because you shouldn't stop one aspect of discrimination because there's other forms of discrimination? Or do you have to slowly, piece by piece, stop all these forms of discrimination? That was what we are proposing in this debate. We're saying that religion is a form of oppression, a form that people could use to discriminate other people. The only rebuttal we heard was that it will exist anyways. Fine, let's say it exists anyways. Why can't we stop this aspect then? It's okay if we don't, maybe for now we don't protect the black people or the African Americans, but right now we're protecting the Shia and Sunni Muslims. Why is that so bad, right? So, in my reply, I'll be talking about burden fulfillment, responsiveness, and the arguments still standing after this debate. So what was the burden of government and opposition? We were supposed to prove why it was justified to ban all religion in all instances, right? They were supposed to prove what was so important about religion and intrinsic about it to begin with. What did we hear from both sides? We told you and fulfilled our burden on the standards of banning. We told you about first the personal harm and how the consent is legitimate, and second about the third-party harm. What did they tell us? They tell us that hope and identity, that was the biggest contention in this debate, that there's hope and identity for lots of people. What we have to acknowledge is that these people are only a minority, right? But fine, let's assume that they're the majority. What happens to these majorities, right? You have to consider, would you rather have these majorities have all these happiness and risk other people getting condemned, dying, and suiciding because the religion doesn't accept them, right? But moreover, there's also emotional burden on our side. But second question is this. If you don't have happiness from a religion, what's so bad? Life is arbitrary, which means you can get other happiness through other forms in the future. Which means I could shift my happiness to people I love, let's say. I mean, I can be happy when I see my mom, right? Why do I have to put it solely on religion? That was something they had to prove in order to win. But moreover, responsiveness. The arguments were mostly, it's not mutually exclusive. It will also happen on your side. But what does this do? It concedes that it does happen on their side. So you acknowledge that the propensity to happen on your side is very much true. So what does this mean? So if only we were able to prove that it doesn't happen worse on our side, then we could take this debate. So what did we say? They tell us that you can opt out. We told you, it was clear from PM when he said you were brainwashed to believe religion when you were born. But moreover, their biggest case was identity and shutting down from happiness, right? The only benefit of this is emotional trust, which you could shift. Since religion is a social construct, you can construct it again. And in order for the radicalism side, we're gonna promote extremists because we're hardline, right? They have to prove what is the source of fuel for these radicals. My whip clearly told you it's because there's religion to begin with. That's why extremists had this avenue to fuel themselves. Therefore, you remove religion, they won't have this avenue because now there won't be hardline Muslims running to ISIS and say I support you because now no one cares, right? No one knows religion to begin with. Secondly, they had to prove and engage in my response on how we can kill religion slowly through generations because we'll mandate it and keep watch to make sure that the next generation will only see bits and pieces of it. Soon, it will be eradicated. No more religion. They had to prove to us why it will survive in order for the ideology will still survive argument to work. Lastly, hope and identity. And I already told you, social construct and shifting happiness. So lastly, what are the fatal flaws of opposition in this debate? They're contradictions. They tell us that people will join extremists. But then you all said there's organic change. So what is it really? Will people join extremists or is there organic change? You have to prove to us. You can't stand in both premises, right? So, because your premise there was condemnation, that's why people join extremists. But next, hope and identity. And then they also shafted their case. They said, work is also a happiness. Okay, so what do you want? Work or religion? Which means you can see there's two aspects. So you can choose one and you can ban religion. With all of these said, you have to ask a question. I want you to remember this. What is the biggest harm if people don't get happiness? Remember, you have lots of aspects of happiness, not only one. Thank you.